You should see my desk. I have a huge lamp on like a big long lamp, and it's all magnetic. And I have business cards just magnetically stuck to the entire thing because there's all of the people that I need to call. So if there's ever a problem, I can just go, yep, that's who I'm calling.
This is Facility Rockstars, the podcast that celebrates the unsung heroes of our daily lives, facility professionals. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Join me as we honor these great leaders, sharing stories, insights, and expertise that empower us all to learn and grow together. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Kaloutas, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier.
Welcome back to Facility Rockstars. I'm your host, Jay Culbert. Buckle up, because the first time I spoke to today's guest, I said, oh shit, I'd better police myself, because we had such a good conversation, too effortless. We could go on for hours, but it's going to be awesome, so get ready. He is a highly experienced professional, bringing over 10 years of dedicated expertise in the intricate fields of facilities management and advanced machining. I'm looking forward to delving into how he leverages his extensive background to manage complex systems like HVAC, plumbing, heating, and cooling towers, and to hear about his mission to foster a sustainable and vibrant work environment. He's a meticulous project manager with a keen eye for overseeing crucial infrastructure and ensuring everything runs smoothly. He is an accomplished facilities management expert and a champion of operational excellence, a skill set he significantly honed during his impactful tenure as the Director of Facilities at MSAD 17 School District. He's currently the Facilities Manager at Omega Optical. Michael Manning, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the podcast.
Me too, man. And yeah, like I said in the intro here, I really enjoyed, we've had a few conversations, so I'm really looking forward to this, and thanks for investing your time.
Oh, we have. Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. So all these different positions, all these different things you've done, things you've learned. What's been your biggest lesson learned, Michael?
Biggest lesson learned. Well, you can prepare all you like, but there's always going to be an emergency. And so really taking the time to ask the people around you that may have been there longer than you, getting that knowledge and say, asking them what has happened in the past that we could improve on, and gathering all that information and trying the best you can to try to mitigate and really foresee any future emergencies. I had this situation where we had a sprinkler pipe break in one of the schools and it flooded the gymnasium. And nobody knew until Monday morning when the custodian came in. And so the lesson learned there was basically working with all these different groups of people to come up with the less complicated, the better. We came up with a system that was tied to the boiler. So when the Wi-Fi went out, it sent a signal that said, hey, there's no electricity in the building. And that was the simplest, easiest way to get some kind of emergency, contact to that building when no one is there and there's no heat in the building. Because if there's no heat, the pipes will probably freeze in January. That was a big lesson learned on really taking the information from the people around you and analyzing that data and trying to come up with a simpler solution.
It sounds like a great fix.
It wasn't, it was a very, very old building. It was a town hall that was given to the school district that they turned into a classroom or series of classrooms. So we were able to make sure that situation didn't happen again. And we were aware if there was no heat in the building, which is huge, especially in facilities.
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Well, that's a good lesson learned right there. I appreciate you sharing it. Awesome.
No problem.
So I know you and I have teased out a bunch of topics and things that we might want to touch on. And I remember one of them was like how the role of facilities has become a key part of a business strategy. And I think you said, from the boiler room to the boardroom or something similar to that. Can you expand on that?
What I had learned as I was moving my way up in the facilities rankings basically was that the more information that the board members or even the CEO or the top executive level knows, the better that you can prepare and do that preventative maintenance part, right? Just replacing a boiler because it exploded is not preventative maintenance. Letting them know that we are well past our ROI on this boiler that's 20 years old and we're lucky that we've got another 10 years out of it. That's preparing for the future and letting them know that, hey, this $15,000, $20,000 bill is going to be coming down the line, and we need to be prepared for that. So really taking that information and preparing the executive team or the board members for that, and letting them actually know what the actual situation is of the state of the district or the company or the building, that really helps. And we had been talking before is that, when you come to that level of communication with the executive team or the board members, you have to come with solutions as well. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
So making sure that you have 2 or 3 or 4 things in a row or solutions or different strategies to mitigate that situation is incredibly important as well. So that's what I've been doing the last couple of years, is really gauging what's happening with the buildings and prioritizing and letting that executive level know, like, hey, these are the guys and gals that are really making this happen. And they've brought this information to me. They've said, this pipe leaks or this boiler's, kicking out or so on and so forth. And really organizing that into a coherent presentation that makes sense to them. So that's my take on bringing it to the boardroom, basically.
No, I think it's great. And I like the statement you made. I wrote it down what you're saying. The more you know, the more you can prepare for. I mean, it sounds so basic, but still very critical. Follow-up question for you is, like, what's the data collection process? And how do you, all the folks that are dealing with it, bringing it to you, then, what's that workflow look like?
Well, that workflow is basically just collecting the data, even if it's a verbal or written thing where it says, okay, maintenance guy comes to me and says, hey, I have a notebook that has all of the invoices that we've had somebody come and fix this heater in this building. That's the main source of heat for this building. And it's broken down 10 times. I can then take all those invoices and all those instances where that unit or piece of equipment failed and say, hey, listen, this is what we're dealing with, instead of just going to them and saying, hey, we need a $20,000 heater, and then you have actual verbal and written communications, showing that this is a problem and we should look forward to, we should be looking forward to replacing it. So,
Smart.
the collection of all the different people, because you get different perspectives from different people. Some people might say, oh yeah, it's just it's a backup heater, or it's not the main source of heat or something like that. And it's nice to get all that information from those different groups of individuals from top to bottom.
Sure. Makes a lot of sense.
Yep.
Well done, too.
Mm.
Now, you touched on this in, there's another topic we talked about, and that's handling emergencies like a pro. And you kind of, I'm going to say you handled that a little bit in the initial question here, right? With the flooded gymnasium. But do you want to expand on that more? That's pretty good.
So yeah, we touched on the beginning and the end. So I told you what happened, and then I told you how we fixed it. I didn't tell you what happened, how we came together. So basically, touching upon what you just said, communication is key with your team, whether it's Teams messaging or group texting. I mean, that's a little, on a little hard, but it's a bunch of phone numbers and texts. So, if you have some kind of application where you have communication, it's crucial. So when I found out that had happened and the gymnasium and cafeteria were flooded, fire services first, police to manage the traffic, so on and so forth. And those public utilities are those public services are easier to deal with than grabbing a bunch of people together. Luckily, by that point, I was about 8-10 months in, and I had good communication with all of my maintenance and all of my custodial staff. So I was able to get at least 10 people, 12 people there immediately, and then have another additional 10 come and really span out over the entire school and clean up as much as we possibly can. And having that support and that network is crucial to you taking a step back and seeing the macro point of view. And then, as they're doing that and taking care of those things and really helping out the entire situation, you take a step back and you start scheduling the cleaning crews and the mold mitigation and all of those different things. So having that support system, even just within your own department, is crucial in a situation like that.
Well, it also sounds like you built a great team, or you're building a great team, and you get that many people right away, and they're doing it and allowing you to step back and see the macro picture, like you said. That's a good team you get there. Good,
And it's
awesome.
hard to, yeah, it's hard to start at, the custodial level and then maintenance and then facilities and all that to not be involved in every little detail because you want to help. You want to help your people and be there and, in your muck boots and out of the basement in the
Hmm.
1 foot water, you want to be able to help them, but then realizing that you've graduated to a different level where you can say, okay, these guys are professionals. They know what they're doing. They know exactly how to clean this up. And I'm going to help them by taking the next step.
Hmm. Good leadership.
Yeah.
That's going to
I
lead me right
try.
into, yeah, hey, it sounds like it's working, Michael. So building a strong facilities team, like
Yep.
start us off, walk us through that process, because I know you're passionate about that and you've done a good job with that.
Well, the one thing that I really learned is when you become a supervisor or a director or any of those things, you have people underneath you. The number one thing I learned was to not change anything right off the bat unless it was an emergency. I'd have my guys come in, our big first meeting, I had the guys and girls from the custodial staff, the maintenance, the grounds team, and they were just, any new boss coming in, you're apprehensive. And so the first thing I said to him, I said, hey, just to let you guys know, I am not changing a thing. I'm not changing a thing. You've been here for so many years. You know exactly what you're doing. You wouldn't be here if you didn't. I said, I trust you that you know how to do your job. And if there's something you need to change, come to me. We'll work together to fix that together. But as far
How is
as,
that message
right
received?
now, oh my gosh, you should have seen them slumping in their chairs with relief. They were just
Hmm.
they were like, oh, the pressure just melted off. I'm like, I'm not here to I'm here to make your work life easier if I can. If I can. Let's work together to make it so that I'm your advocate. I want to make your job more efficient and just in any way, more pleasant for you to do. You know, Whatever makes it easier and better for you, that's what I want to do. And so they were totally relieved. And that's how I started the communication. I was like, stop in anytime, just call me, text me, you let me know, I'll come to you. And so that's how we started that communication of, okay, this guy actually cares enough to listen to what I'm saying. And that's why I told him, I was like, I won't be able to change, what you need immediately, but we can work on that to actually make it happen in the future, whether that's supplies or a new vendor or that's something we can fix, and just having that person that would actually hear them in that position is huge. It's huge. It really is. Just to
Hmm.
hear them, know that they're being heard. Being heard is a very, you know, positive thing to an employee. It really is.
Oh, absolutely. And it sounds like true advocacy too, Michael. Like you're really looking out for them. And I'm sure they felt that, they heard it, they experienced that. So, what happens, or did this happen, when you did have to make a change?
No, I know I'm laughing because it's such a real thing. So the most successful way that I was able to bring on change was to actually bring in the group of people that affected. And I say, come on in here. We're going to do, this is what I'm planning to do. I would love your input and let it know ahead of time that this is what I would like to work towards instead of just changing it. Unless it was a safety issue or it was a budgetary issue that we had to cut something, then I would bring those people in and I would let them know, this is what I'd like to do. I would like your input. We'll see if we can make this work for everybody. Not everybody can be happy with, change is hard, but
Cool.
I would involve them in just letting them know ahead of time. Nobody likes a surprise. Oh yeah, all the locks are changed or so on and so forth or whatever it is. We're going with a whole new. I mean, I remember custodians get really upset. We changed vendors and it wasn't their specific kind of rag, and they were super upset. And I was like, okay, that's a very small lesson in just not letting them know. So informing your employees that there's a change coming down the line is, I found that's very helpful.
What a great example too. Something so well, I'm saying so
So
small as a
small, yeah.
rag, right? But that was important
Yeah,
to them.
rags and
They didn't
mop
like
heads.
that.
It's of course it is. It's their daily thing.
Yep.
They use
Yeah.
hundreds of them a week. You
Hmm.
know,
Wow. Yeah. Really good lesson. And like let over communicate is what I'm getting here. You inform them like this is where we're going. I think that's the way you said it. Like this is where we want to get to, and you involved them in that process, or at least gave them the vision of where it was going to go before you start. Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
excellent.
they're the ones that are doing the work. You want the people that are in the trenches. Let's say doing making sure that they have everything that they need to be able to do their job. That's not
Hmm.
always the case. Sometimes with vendors late dropping off supplies or the kitchen's involved and so on and so forth. But you want to do everything you can to make sure that they can do their job to their capacity. I mean, their full capacity.
Based on what you just shared too, I think we should jump to another thing that I know you're passionate about, and that's giving credit where credit's due, and like why custodial and facility teams deserve more, recognition from leadership.
Yeah, and it was so that hit me because one, I had been a custodian and then maintenance and then facilities. So I started off, I had to get schooled on how to use a floor buffer and like how to mop in the right way and so on and so forth. So like I was learning all these crucial foundational skills that I hadn't known before. This is years ago. And then, getting up to the point where I was a director and be like, oh, I have not forgotten those lessons that I've learned from, 87-year-old Ray, who's been there for 35 years. He showed me all the little tips and tricks and how he has it down to a science. And so I loved getting all that input and then getting to the point where I was working hand in hand with the CEO or the school district administrators at that high level, the superintendent and being like, hey, these are the people that are doing the work. And, I just want to make sure that they have what they need. And also one of the biggest epiphanies I had when I was had those employees, that many, was that I had 4 custodians in like 2 or 3 different schools that had called out because either their children were sick or they were sick. It was during the flu season, and a couple hours later, 2 more called in. And all of a sudden, I had 10 custodians on one shift over 7 different schools that had called in because they were just legitimately sick. And, nobody wants to force anybody. You can't, you can't make people come in when they're sick. And I would never want to. I'm like, okay, no problem. You're great. And then I'm shifting people around and doing all these things to make sure that there's basic services of these schools, cutting the shifts in half and shifting them around. And then it hit me. I'm like, they didn't, if all of them did not show up for an 8-hour period, the school system would shut down. Forget about trash removal, coordinating with the delivery drop-offs for the kitchens, cleaning the bathrooms, you name it, kids causing a ruckus in the wherever room, because it changes every single day. And it really hit me that like these are the people that are making it happen, you know? Yes, there's the CEO and the superintendent and the board members that come up with the budget, so on and so forth. I mean, they can budget until they're blue in the face, but without the custodians and the maintenance workers, it can't happen. I mean, it's the exact same thing with teachers. If the teachers just didn't show up, there wouldn't be school. So I really wanted to bring awareness to these upper management levels that like, these are the nuts and bolts. These are the people that are making this happen. And so to tell me that, we can live without a lawn tractor or we don't need mop heads or cleaning supplies is a no-go. It doesn't matter how you need to figure it out. We need to figure it out because once the trash is not moving and the floors are not getting clean, like they don't see they don't see Ray and Luis buffing the floors of the 250,000 square foot high school at 3 a.m. They don't see that. So I really wanted to, as much as possible, bring awareness to those people. And so I bring them around and have them come to my office and I introduce them to everybody in the admin office. Be like, hey, this is blah, blah, blah. They've been there for 17 years and they know every single square inch of the school. So I tried to do that as much as I possibly could so that they would feel like they're known.
I can only imagine the gratitude and appreciation they feel for you for doing that.
And that's why they would show up at emergency,
Right. Yeah.
I'd say clock in, this is overtime. You can come, great. They'd be like, I'll be there in 10 minutes. Like, great. Thank you.
Yeah, because they're appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to the opener and said, man, I'm gonna have to police myself with this awesome guest, Michael, because you are bleeding your passion around these people and the process and the importance of what's going on in your facilities. It matters so much, and you're bringing light to it. You bring it forth, and I love that. Love
Great.
it.
Thank you.
Of course. So let's talk about real sustainability in facilities, right? Simple, effective ways. I don't know. How do you reduce environmental impact? I know we've touched on this. Do you want to expand on that?
Well, we implemented this program where we changed a couple different programs that we use. Instead of printing them out, we just sent an email confirmation. Or instead of, I would go to every single one of our vendors and I'd say, I want to go paperless. I just want an email notification. Here's accounts payable, and here's me as a CC. No more paper. So, I went from, and this is just over the course of a year. We have a company that comes by and gets all our recycling, and they do the confidential paperwork shredding and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I went from every single week to 4 recycle bins, tall bins, like the 50-gallon bins, down to 2 a week, and then once a week. And then now we're down to once a month, and it's only 2 barrels.
Wow.
So just by contacting every single one of the vendors and saying, hey, we don't want paper billing anymore, or we don't want so on and so forth. We'd love to just be digital from this point on. It cut our like 75% of our paperwork, really. And that was within the company as well.
Oh, sure.
Being
sure.
like, so like printing it off and walking across the place and be like, hey, here's this piece of paper. No, we only do it if it's a sign off or something like that. So yeah, it really did reduce the amount. And then as far as, we produce oils as well. We have oils that come out of the machine, and we have somebody, instead of just paying a company to come and get it, we actually have a local group of people that will reuse that oil. I can't remember exactly what kind of oil it is, but instead of having it processed, we have somebody else who can reuse it. So that cuts down on our cost for disposing it, and it helps it so that you don't exactly know where it's going to end up. So in this case, you do. Use motor oil. They use it for heating and so on and so forth, and like in a multi-use engine. So it's nice to know that it's going to where you actually know where it's going.
I
so
love
just
these
in small
examples.
ways like that. Yeah, just in small ways like that. And sustainability. Yeah, we implemented a system that, instead of using domestic water to fill the toilets, what we did was we got 8 bathrooms in the building. So we installed a 500-gallon tank, and then we use water from the chiller to go through the machines, and then it would go into, the sewage, and it's just water. It's going from super cold to warm, and then it's going out the building. So we implemented a system where we installed a huge plastic tank, and all the runoff from the machines go into this tank, gets filtered, and then they fill the toilets from there. So we're double using that water and using less in that aspect. So just in a 8 toilet situation, it's enough where it works, and it saves on our domestic, and it saves on wasting water, really. And that's just a small example.
Hey, rock stars, if you're tuning into the podcast and are feeling overwhelmed by all the maintenance demands at your facility, don't stress. We've got you covered. Our sponsor, Kaloutas, is your go-to partner to help you tackle all those demands and get them done right, on time, and with top-notch quality. From project planning to execution, Kaloutas is there to make hard work easy. Visit kaloutas.com today to get started. Well, you say small, but I mean it's brilliant, and it's not at scale, sure, but you thought of these things and they made an impact right away. It sounds like, right?
Yep.
I want to jump back to the paperless, and maybe this probably applies to all three. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But with the paperless, from like what I'm going towards here, Michael, is change management, and
Hmm.
people typically don't like change. So if they can't print stuff, was this a difficult process? Is where what I really wanted to ask you.
No,
For
it,
people.
it really, no, I know exactly what you're saying. And people don't like change. And, people who have been there for 30 years, they're like, well, this is the way we do it. And I'm like, I totally hear you. And I don't want to change anything that's going to make your job harder, And so we basically just, it wasn't even a policy. It was just an email to the whole company saying like, hey, if you don't have to print it, don't print it. If it's something important like an invoice that has to be signed, go ahead and bring it to AP or whatever, wherever it needs to go. But, if you don't have to, and I had a lot of this at the school system too, teachers printing out, materials for their classroom, and they print out a bunch more than they're trying to be prepared for the day, and then come to find out that they didn't need those 500 pages. And oh boy, if the lesson plan changed and like a sub would run to the office copier and print out, 500 pages for the various groups of students all day that would come through the classroom. And then we're like, okay, we can figure out a better way to do this. Let's get a solid plan going here and let's do lesson plans for, schools are different. It really is.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
sometimes it's hard to get supplies for them. Sometimes you have an abundance of it, and then sometimes you go a week without it. And you're like, okay, well, let's keep a reserve for one, and for two, let's not print out 500-page lesson plans. So it's simple. Simple thing is just sending out an email, and people start to adapt to it, and they'll go from that fistful of paper to just a couple. And if you can do that with 100 employees, it makes a gigantic difference.
That's it. So it doesn't sound like it was a challenge, really.
No, not really. I mean, there's one or two stubborn people, and that's okay. It's okay. If you can get, 75 to 85% of the people to really start thinking about that, then you've done a good job.
And with the other two, well done, by the way. That's awesome. With the machine oil and the chiller water, I mean, I can't imagine that was doesn't really affect many people, right? They wouldn't even notice it, would
No,
they? Yeah,
no, they don't even notice.
yeah. Good for you. That's awesome.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Managing
We're cruising.
multi-site operations. That's something I know you wanted to talk about and add to and expand upon too. And I'd love it if you did.
Great. I appreciate that. Yeah. Managing multiple sites, incredibly difficult, especially if you don't have electronic programs in place. So I'm a huge advocate uh, for CMMS systems. There's a ton of them out there, and it really depends on which one suits your organization. I don't need to go into specific brands, but basically, you know, most of the time that I've seen over the last decade or so is that it's, oh, let me check in the notebook. And then they disappear for 10 minutes and pull out a 3-ring binder and flip back to 1997. And they're just like, okay, yeah, that's the last time we changed these filters. And it's like, okay, that's great. I'm glad that you were able to find that. But, from this point on, let's work with the computerized system, and we can always print that out later if you want, like a final end of the year thing if you need to and have that documentation. I get it. But really having that computerized maintenance management system is huge, especially on a multi-site. And because, as that saying goes, it's like if you don't know, you don't know. Or if you don't know if it's a problem, how are you supposed to fix it?
Mhm.
That's basically how it is. So even on one or two sites, that's important because what that computerized system does is it cuts out the hey guy or where's Bob or where's Randy. And then that employee or that group of employees who has a problem is wandering around the facility looking for the maintenance person or the facilities person.
Mhm.
So, and this also goes along with what I was saying earlier about the boiler and, or the heater and having that system in place, having all those things being tracked so that you can later on print that out and use that data and say, okay, this is what we're looking for. So going back to the multi-site is if I have a competent facilities or maintenance person at each one of those locations and having that electronic system, we can start working together and shifting resources to make sure that those things happen. If somebody is having a specific problem here, or there's a staff shortage here, and those things are on the record, you can shift around and make it happen a lot easier, because I don't know that the boiler is tinking, on job site, or, at the school number 5, or there's, Billy's missing from school number 3, so on and so forth. And
Mhm.
that's more a scheduling thing, but having that computerized system, you can see all of the problems at each individual sites, and knowing, and then planning with the maintenance team to say, okay, listen, this week we're going to tackle these top 5 issues that are high priority, and they'll work our way down the list. Just so, because a lot of times what happens is the principal or the CEO or an admin will call up and say, there's an emergency. And like, to the maintenance department, it's not really emergency. Like, yes, it's important, but there's a leaking boiler and glycol leaking into the gymnasium at another site. And so having those things in place and knowing what your actual priority list is from high to low, and the emergency things on, at another column, and tackling that with your team is super important. And that's really the only way that you can manage this, multiple sites, because otherwise you're just going to be running around like a crazy person, and you're not going to get anything done because you're being constantly
Mhm.
pulled in each direction.
Just the whole like flip back in a 3-ring binder to 1997 and found the answer. Hysterical. But did you roll this out? Because it all makes sense. It was a great walkthrough. Thank you.
I
It
did.
definitely. But okay. So how long did it take to roll out, implement, and really get this thing moving?
Well, with school systems, it's different because they have a budget that they have to stick to for that current fiscal year. But I was able to work with the IT department to get a bare bones system going, where people could submit tickets and we would know what location that was coming from. So I've researched and worked with all the different CMMS systems, and we ended up going with this one specific one for a huge district, and we got it implemented, and I worked with it, and I did training, and I brought all the facilities managers in. I said, this is where we're working towards. Here's the all the links that you need. If you want to come here, we can do it all at once. Like, presentation guy come in, and we can do the training in person all together, or you can do it individually. So we did all the training, and it worked out quite well. And it was actually a relief to a lot of the employees, because, you have like, one of the biggest things was that somebody would come to you with a problem, and you'd be like, okay, great, and put it down on your desk. And then, like, you go to do that thing, and then, there's assistant superintendent would come to be like, there's a problem in this school. And you'd write it down, put a sticky note, and like stick it on your door. And then all of a sudden you have 10 of these things that you're being pulled in different directions, and no organization whatsoever. And you're just playing at the will of whatever you can, currently concentrate on. So having that system in place really organizes it in a way that is manageable for all different levels of the facilities, basically, even all the way down to, the custodian of part-timers.
Yeah, this is definitely a topic that comes up a lot on the show, and of course in our lives, we all talk about it, right? And whether you have one or you don't can make the biggest difference. And whether it's
It really
implemented
does.
and actually
Yeah.
utilized, right?
Well, I was just going to say, on top of the implementation, I was super passionate about getting that, and then teaching all the other people, not just maintenance facilities, but all the other employees in the building. They're like, oh, we have a way to communicate with you now, and we can take a picture and supply a ticket, and you're going to see it. Yes. And then when we click that it's done, it sends a notification to you. They're like, that's wonderful. I'm like, see, I told you, this is a good change, you know? And yeah, it's been great, and it helps all the people in the organization at different levels.
They're very lucky to have you because like your team appreciates you, right? Um, your innovative thinking, this is what I'm picking up, is
Mhm,
helping the sustainability, the environmental impact, everything we've talked about, right down to the right
mhm.
to the CMMS. Now,
Yep,
all of these
yep.
things were not in place, right? So yeah,
Mhm.
they're lucky. They're lucky to have you, man. Um, do you want to touch on vendor management? I know we talked about that briefly.
Yeah, sure, briefly. So vendor management to me is very difficult from the get-go. Like, when you're starting a new position, it's hard to learn and get all of those different relationships going right from the get-go. It takes time. I mean, it takes months to build those relationships with those different vendors, or those different, suppliers. And so once you start that working relationship and having not really, not necessarily a first name basis, but you have, that is one of the crucial things in facilities, and what the entire organization is looking at you is like, you are the person who knows the person to call, right?
Hmm.
So
Mhm.
having all of those vendors and suppliers, like you should see my desk. I have a huge lamp on my, like a big long lamp, and it's all magnetic. And I have business cards just magnetically stuck to the entire thing because there's all of the people that I need to call. So if there's ever a problem, I can just go, yep, that's who I'm calling. And then, so knowing who to call and having those relationships with those different suppliers is super important, because if there's a shortage of a certain supply, or you want to be topped off on your oil, or you have a relationship with the electric company that works in the local town and a couple towns over. So having all of the different utilities, doesn't matter what it is, uh, having that relationship with them is important. And that's the kind of the vendor management aspect of facilities that I want to touch on, because once you get that up and rolling and you know who to call very quickly, it makes your life so much easier.
Yeah. No, you're building a relationship
Yep.
and trust too. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Good stuff. So you want to kind of pivot a little bit, and you told us about the gymnasium and a few other challenges, but is there another time in your career in one of these roles where you really, for you and your team, faced something that was just like, it was tough, right? And I like to ask this question, Michael, because like we all deal with these things, and these are the things like,
Mm.
oh wow, he dealt with that. How did he rectify it? What did they do? So what can you think of was like the most challenging thing you faced with your team? And then how'd you resolve it?
Yeah, that was a great example of that is when I think it was the state had dropped the lead levels. I think it was from 15 parts per billion down to 5 or 3. I can't remember what it was, but the entire district and every family member, I think my phone vibrated off the wall. It's we had a large group of people that thought we were being poisoned by lead. And they just, this was something that had happened, 6 months to 8 months prior of me even starting the position. And no one had informed the facilities department that this was coming down the line. So all of a sudden, from the state, I have these, you're out of compliance, you're going to be fined, so on and so forth. We're going to contact the newspaper, that type of stuff. And I'm just like, wait a second. When was this supposed to happen? They're like, 13 months ago. And I'm like, okay, well, I've only been here 5 months. So let's figure this out. And so that was the most challenging thing politically and in person as well, bringing the right information to the public, to the teachers. And, I had to basically explain to them, like, this is the same water that, you were drinking when you were here at this elementary school 25 years ago that your kids are drinking now. It's even safer than it was before. They're dropping the amount of acceptable lead levels, not that it has risen.
Mm.
There's nobody pouring liquid lead into the town water system. And so what we had to do was, and this is something that maybe some of you have experienced, is that when they do water testing, they test almost every single water source in the school to start. And so these extremely high lead levels were coming from the janitor's closet where they fill the mop bucket, not the drinking water station. So when you have a drinking water station, it has a built-in water filter, which you change on a regular basis, and those all clear. But of course, the public doesn't see that. They see that there's lead levels that are skyrocketed high. And so I had to do presentations and informative, you know, things with each one of the schools, and sit down the parents and say, listen, you know, we can provide, and we are providing clean water to your children. We are. I said, but you gotta really press upon the children, and we will make flyers and we will make signs that says, don't drink out of the janitor's closet. Don't drink out of the science, laboratory sink. Like there are plenty of sources where there's absolutely crystal clear, clean, filtered water. And that's where you need to be getting your water, you know? And so it was an educational, man, that was difficult. So what I had to do was we
And
installed,
5 months in, you've got your plan set, then you're hit with this.
I got stories that'll make your head spin. And so I sent all of my maintenance guys around, and it was not only was getting in compliance difficult, but you had to drop. I think it was like $800 or $1,500 per drinking station. So what I did is I had them rip out the old fashioned more of the old fashioned drinking stations and put in a brand new filtered one with like the bottle and the motion activated thing. So that was probably the most difficult thing I had about 6 months in was dealing with the political aspect, the educational aspect, working with the CEO, working with the superintendent and the admin staff and the parents and the principals, and just bringing all these educational materials to make sure that, hey, listen, everything's okay. I promise everything's okay. And then updating. So on the other half, updating with my maintenance and facilities teams to go around and do the water testing at the drinking water stations and updating the actual older fixtures. So that was actually the most difficult part, was to get the supplies and also get them implemented into the school. So we had to shut some down, really make some signage, and everything turned out okay. But there was a panic for like 2 or 3 weeks. And yeah, that was probably one of my more difficult ones in facilities.
Sounds like you handled it in a very, if I may, diplomatic and intentional and efficient way.
I tried.
Wow.
It was yeah, it was quite the trip, I'll tell you.
Wow. What advice would you give someone in your role, or a role similar to yours, Michael? If you pick some advice you'd give, what would that be?
I would say having the ability, or just even the tenacity or ambition to learn anything that comes your way, just try. Even if it's way over your head and you feel like you have no idea, so does everybody else. It's okay. You're not going to be an expert. Like when I started doing facilities, I didn't know anything about HVAC. I was like, what does HVAC even stand for? And I no idea. No idea. And so whenever a technician or a HVAC technician shows up, I get a second ladder and I go up and I'm like, what's this? Well, what's this do? And normally they are just ecstatic that you want to learn about what they're doing, and they will talk to you all day about HVAC stuff. And when an electrician comes in and you just ask them like, okay, well, why do you have that type of breaker, and so on and so forth. So asking questions, learning new things, and just trying to basically broaden your scope of knowledge really, really does wonderful things for yourself as a person and for your career. The more valuable you make yourself, the better you are at your job, and they seek information from you. You may not know everything. I mean, I know a lot about, I know a little about a lot of things, right? And a lot about a few things. So really having that base of knowledge about a bunch of different things and asking questions, seeking that knowledge, that's really going to set you ahead of a lot of people, just in general.
It's fantastic advice. And I think you basically said it. It's not just for someone in your role, but it's good life advice. And just try. You started by saying, just try. I love that.
That's it.
Like, put that on a bumper sticker. Just try. Just don't.
And that's why that's why we were laughing and we were talking about boats earlier. And that's the thing is, I saw this boat and it was almost, on the pennies on the dollar. And I was like, you know what? I want to learn about boats. And so I just brought it home and started fixing it. And it's that type of, attitude that you can use in your career. It really is going to help you in the long run,
Yeah, perfect segue. So, all right, we learned a ton about facilities. So now, yes, we know we've been talking boats for weeks now together. And I love the project you're working on and what you're doing and the innovation that you apply to, say, environmental impact at the school or at work, and then you apply it to what you're doing here. And can I tease a channel, or do you not want me to do that? I think there's a channel.
I don't have one yet. I was still recording.
But you will.
I will eventually. Yes.
All right. So tell us what you're doing
when I get it up and
what does Michael do outside of work? Like, what's all this? How do you spend your time?
I also love carpentry. I mean, I've done full renovations on 5 different houses, top to bottom. I've done roofs and foundations and windows and plumbing and electricity, all those things. And that's actually how I got into facilities. I was like, wow, okay, well, I know how to do all these different things. Maybe I could do it for a job. And that's how it started, really. So in my free time, I love doing carpentry and renovations, and just on a daily basis, trying to make the environment easier and nicer and more sustainable, even just in my own house. And then, the boat thing, and I loved boating all my life, and I just got my license, and I was like, okay, you know what? If I'm going to get a boat, I should know about boats. There's nothing worse than having it die in the middle of the lake and you don't know what to do. So that's what I got that, I got a, 25-foot Bayliner, 80s. It's old and it runs, purrs like a kitten. So you finally got it up and running. You had the mechanic look at it. And now I'm doing all the interior renovations and, getting it tuned up and replacing the gas tank, which it's a nightmare for anybody. Don't even ask me about it. And, so I love doing sports with the kids. We love going hiking, and swimming and you name it. I was a Boy Scout, so I've done everything. And we go out and camping in the woods and teaching the boys how to start fires and, cook on the fire. And we just love being outdoors. So that's my main passions is really just taking on a new project and learning all about it. And then, hopefully next summer, taking the boat out. That's the goal.
There you go.
So, yeah,
that's awesome,
so
man.
those are just a few examples of what I do outside.
Well, a couple things I love about you is your thirst for knowledge and your energy. Like they both seem limitless in the time I've known you. So
yeah.
Good stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the time you're spending here with me. So how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to pick on any of the topics that and learn more, right? Well, what's the best way?
Sure. So my email address is mgm85101@gmail.com. That's my main email address. And I live right in like the triangle area of New Hampshire, Vermont, and Massachusetts. So I live in that triangle right there. So it's, I grew up in the Lakes region and I absolutely love New England. I travel all around as much as I possibly can during the weekends. And if anybody has any questions or want to reach out or has, suggestions or comments or wants to hear about a project that I've had in the past in facilities, please, feel free to reach out and have a conversation.
Awesome. Well, I definitely feel fortunate that I've met you. I'm glad to know you, Michael. And I'm psyched about our future conversations. So
great. Thank you so much, Jay. I really appreciate it.
And thanks for spending the time on the show. It was great.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Of course. And everyone listening, if you learned something from Michael, if you laughed, tell someone else about the show, find it on Spotify or wherever you consume your podcasts. Feel free to reach out to him. He shared his info with you. And we'll see everyone again on another episode next week.
It's a wrap. Another episode of Facility Rockstars is in the books. Facility Rockstars is sponsored by Kaloutas, operating the way you operate in order to make your life easier. Until next time, facilitate and rock on.